60% of today's self-made millionaires started making money before they turned 18. If you want to set your kids up for success, it's not about waiting until college. It starts now.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether they start their own business or not, the skills of an entrepreneur, problem solving, leadership, financial literacy, not being a money idiot will give them a massive edge in life. So today on the Exit, we're going to be breaking down how to raise kids who think like entrepreneurs. All right, welcome to On the Exit.
Welcome, guys.
You know, a lot of parents think that entrepreneurship is risky or unnecessary for kids, but the reality, Aaron, is that schools don't teach the things that are most necessary at survival and being successful at life. They don't teach financial education. They don't teach problem-solving skills. They don't teach so much as how to balance a checkbook, which I don't know that we need to have the skill of balancing a checkbook anymore, but I'm simply making a point, right?
Right.
Where
Practical
are
skills.
our kids going to learn problem-solving skills and things like that entrepreneurs need to be successful, but everyone actually needs these skills, right?
Yeah, it's true. And entrepreneur skills and mindset and also just life skills. School they don't teach you a lot of the things, that are very applicable for later in life. In school, it's, you got to take your test by yourself. You're not allowed to get any help. You got to follow the rules. Not that's bad always, but you've got to do it exactly the way the outline says. You're everything's a grade. And it's all through this certain lens, right? Things like that don't necessarily apply out to the real world. There's only one right answer, where when you get out in the world and you're building a business, you got to innovate, you got to adapt, and there's not a lot of that in school. And I think it's just something where, as parents, being able to create that for our kids, by supplementing, the education, because, going to school, it has a lot of benefits. Obviously, there's great things to that.
Of course.
Discipline, showing up on time. But man, I look at my kids and there's a lot that's lacking there that, I want them to just, their mindset to be, I don't know if that makes sense, but
I would say
thinking more along the lines of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, if I look back, like when I was in school, and I was actually a really good student, did really well, all that kind of stuff. But if I look at the things that I learned, throughout my life that have contributed the most to the success I've experienced in life, I didn't get those from school. I got those from starting a business when I was 11 years old, right? Like I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, and I've shared this on the Exit before, when I was probably 10 years old. And my grandpa was a pipe welder, had gotten a settlement for asbestosis. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. He was excited to be able to take our whole family on a vacation to the Outer Banks, and he gave all of us kids $100 to spend. And I felt like a rich kid. I had $100 bill in my pocket. But then as, I started considering all the things I wanted to do, $100 wasn't going to be enough. So I had to figure out how to solve that problem. What am I going to and most people would just be like, okay, now I need to prioritize and cut away the things that I don't like, that I'm not going to be able to do. But I just didn't think like that for whatever reason. I thought, my first thought was, how could I make this $100 become more money so that I could do more stuff with it?
Yeah.
Right. And so I negotiated a deal, my first deal, with a lady at a flea market to get 10 seashell necklaces for $10, and ended up going up and down the beach that afternoon while the other kids were playing in the sand. And I sold all those seashell necklaces for $10 each, and I doubled my $100. So then I had $200.
Yeah.
And I realized, in that moment, if you can provide something of value and solve a problem and give someone a reason to do business with you, which I was selling to retired couples who my pitch was, they probably had grandkids that were my age, and they would want to get them some souvenirs from their trip to the Outer Banks. And so
smart,
they could either go do that at some shop, and they could, or they could buy it from me, and I would know exactly what their kids would want. It's seashell necklaces, like their grandkids would want. So that was my whole pitch, and I literally sold out in probably 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, of doing that. And so the whole point that I'm making is I look at the trajectory in my life, the businesses that I've built, the landscaping business that I built, that I sold, the companies that we've built together, the other ventures that I've had that I've built. I look at all of that and I say, the most important skills that it took to be successful at that they do translate into everyday life, but they did not come from regular, formalized education. And so when I'm looking at now my kids, I think the value for formal education, to be honest, is even less than it was when you and I were growing up, right?
Yeah.
Because look at like the job rates and stuff like that for kids that are coming out of college and have $100,000 in college debt and they can't get a job.
Yeah, it's not getting any better in that regard. Obviously, if you're going into a specialized field, that's regulated or medicine, legal, things like that, having the education is good. I think that education, and I'm even thinking going into like college education, my wife's constantly like, all right, what college are your kids going to be going to and stuff, she likes that idea, and I'm not opposed to it. And I think that I think college can be good to really expand your worldview. Because I think one of the greatest, pieces of that is your network. It's the relational skills, it's the social, and I think it starts even in like younger, grades, where you're interacting with, classmates and stuff like that. With like homeschooling, for example, I was homeschooled for a while. I went to a lot of different schools because I moved a lot growing up, and my homeschooling experience was pretty bad.
Sure.
But I don't think it was homeschooling per se. It was just, hey, this could have been set up better where there was social interactions, where there was guidance, where I could have been developed with some of these stuff we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a really cool, I know a bunch of entrepreneurs, like high level people, like 3 or 4 I'm thinking about, that homeschool.
Yeah.
And they love it because they're able to really mold their kids and teach them. And I really like the idea. I actually... part of me really wishes that I homeschooled my kids. It would just be very hard.
Yeah.
When they're 5.
It is hard. We homeschool our kids. It's hard.
Yeah.
But it's worth it because I want, like for us, and I think I know you, I know how you like invest these principles into your boys, even though, are not homeschooling them, like the idea of showing them the value that they can create through entrepreneurial venture. Right. I think, and I think if I were to put a trajectory on it, the first thing that needs to be instilled is work ethic, because problem solving skills, all that kind of stuff, like none of that will move the needle if it's not anchored in like really strong work ethic.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if I were to try to rank what are the most important skills that I want to instill into my kids related to what it actually takes to have meaningful success in life, whether it's building a business, whether it's working a job, whether it's, being a stay-at-home mom, which is one of the hardest jobs in the world, like whatever it is, the important thing, number one, is work ethic. They've got to be able to have a resilient work ethic and be able to push through barriers and obstacles if you're ever going to have any hope of being successful. So talk to me a little bit about how are you doing stuff with your boys to instill work ethic into them?
Yeah. I think that is one thing, in favor of school, where we have to be there at 8:20 and you have to show up on time. And if we're not there on time, they get a check mark, a bad one, and they don't like it. They get bothered. They get really... they're like little perfectionists, So I like that structure where everything is set up for them and it's work, they don't want to do the assignments, so I think that's something that is instilling in them, and even being entrepreneurial, I think it would be great if my kids just worked jobs, because I've worked jobs in the past and it just teaches you, like, you've got to go to work and you got to do what this guy says and you're doing it for this guy's vision and they're paying you for X amount of, and then you realize like, maybe that's not for me. Like maybe I want to go do my own thing, or maybe it's actually, this is great. Like I've got this perfect setup. And so I like just getting exposed to different like aspects of work can develop work ethic.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
then, and then entrepreneurial, I told you this before, I have a business with my kids. We have a laundry business. We have 2 different locations with coin operated washers and dryers. So my kids are, they're going, they're getting the coins out. I'm emailing the manager with one's broken and showing them, and then we go to the bank and we deposit the coins and then we split it, They get 50%, I get 50. I was like, hey, I'm going to buy all the machines. You guys are going to do all the work. and we'll split it. And unfortunately, I'm doing like all the work too, because somebody
Yeah.
has to drive them and somebody
Yeah.
has to like, but I was like, hey, I was like, when you guys get older, I'm not going to go at all, because this is how business works. Like maybe you guys are older when you're 16 and you have an idea, you're going to have to find somebody who's willing to put up $10,000 for your vending machine business that you want to start or whatever it is. And they're going to want to take a lot of the money for putting up the money, and they're like, oh, that concept totally makes sense,
Yep.
So I'm trying to like do things like that. My one kid, he's 8 years old. He's actually saved up $1,000. He's been saving up for 2 years.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, that's a ton.
Yeah.
And he's, yeah, Dad, I want to save up. He's like, I think I can save up $1,500. He's because I saved up, X, and I saved up this and this, and he's like really diligent. He's like the saver of the family.
Yeah.
And that was before I had my business.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so he's like,
yeah.
And so he just loves the idea of, wanting to get more machines, wanting to, to try to figure out more ways to, he wants to take that 1,000 and put it into something that makes more money. I'm like, that's really cool to be thinking that way. The other kids, they're not that way. They're just, I want to spend it on Lego sets as soon as I get it. But,
I think
exposing them to that though.
Yeah. I think the takeaway is at first there has to be an unbalanced incentive. Like you have to be able to create an out of balance incentive for your kids to motivate them to do the work first, because ultimately there's no context where you are ever going to have someone as a 40-something-year-old entrepreneur. You're never going to have somebody come to you and say, hey, Aaron, what I want to do is I want to buy you a business. I want to drive you every day to go collect the money. I want to drive you to the bank to deposit it. I'll put up all the risk and all the stuff, and I will carry you through the entire thing, and I will give you 50% of the profits, right? That's an out of balance incentive. And so, but when you're instilling these things into your kids, I think it's important to create those out of balance incentives. If I look at why did I think that, and I'm just realizing this as we're talking about it, which is super cool. If I think of what motivated me, like what was the thing that caused me to actually have the belief that I could buy seashell necklaces and sell them for more, it was several years of my grandfather, the same one that took us on that trip. He and I had this like aluminum can business, and he drank Shasta cream soda, right? And he would literally drink like so much of it. He would probably drink 6 or 7 a day, right? And so he would put the aluminum can. Oh, they were fantastic. But he would put the aluminum can up, and then he had, his brother-in-law that also, drank like Diet Coke or whatever. And so I would go up and down the side of the road, and we're talking like country road, right? Like not very much traffic, probably 4 cars drive past it a day. I would go out with my little Walmart bag, and I would walk up and down that road as an 8-year-old kid, picking up 3 aluminum cans that people had thrown out of their car off the side of the road, right? And I would bring that. And then my grandpa would, every couple of months would load up all of the aluminum cans he'd collected and my, little bag of 7 or 8 cans over 3 or 4 months that I had collected. And we would go and we would sell them and we would split the profit 50-50, right? It was an outweighed, like an out of balance incentive that got me believing that something was like that my work was valuable.
Yeah.
That it could be valuable. And I think to instill that into kids, you have to give them out of balance incentives. And that out of balance incentive probably gets like bigger the younger they are and can become more in balance the older that they get.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're pushing them toward reality.
Yeah. And
but
eventually
you
remove all the training wheels and,
exactly.
And they do it themselves.
But my 6-year-old daughter shouldn't be expected at any level to live within reality. Right?
Yeah.
Like, she's not responsible for her life yet. No. Of course not, right?
Yeah.
But that's the point that I'm making. Sometimes we're like, oh, they need to, we can think, oh, if I get them to do like this one thing and I reward them huge, then they'll become entitled or whatever. And it's just their whole world is coming into balance. What you're doing is saying, okay, I'm going to meet you where you are and instill this into you by giving an out of balance incentive for you to begin to practice a skill that's necessary for you to be successful at life. And if we don't offer out of balance incentives, then they don't have motivation to do it. And that's how they become entitled, because what ends up happening? They're still going to probably end up getting the stuff that they're saving money for some way or another. Even if Kayla and I are able to hold our ground and we're not going to buy you the thing. We're not going to do, like, Nana and Granddad are going to buy it for them. They're going to get it from somewhere.
Right.
So let's get them and teach them along the way, right?
Yeah, I've been paying my kids to work out. And I told them,
awesome.
I'm like, give them
we have
they have certain amount of push-ups and stuff they have to do. And I already told them, we did a challenge, a 10-day challenge.
Yeah.
And I was paying them. It was a reading, it was a mental thing, it was some spiritual component of it, there was physical. And I told them, okay, there's a whiteboard and everything. They could lose points, they could gain points. It was just the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're going to do this again probably in 3 months. And it's going to be like a lot harder challenges. And you guys are going to get like half the amount of money. And they were like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then the next one is going to be, you're just going to do it for free because you want to do it, because you're doing it for your own growth. You're doing it for your own sense of self, where you're awesome, and it's not somebody. It's the same reason we don't do allowances, I don't have a strong opinion on that, but I'm like, man, they've already got their business here. So I'm just not going to give you handouts. I'm like, you get air conditioning, you have a blanket, you got food in the fridge. We provide so much for you. If you want to have extra spending money, then there'll be extra chores. Yeah. Because I just think as being part of the family, like you got some responsibilities. You got to take out the garbage. You got to clean up your toys. You got to sort your clothes and put them in the hamper and stuff. Like that's just part of being a part of a family, right? Yeah. So that's my philosophy on it. Yeah. But I want to create opportunities for them to get money, but like through different work or different, like the business thing we got, Yeah. So, yeah.
And sometimes, depending if you're listening, sometimes maybe your kids are not at the age where instilling entrepreneurial skills into them where money really means a lot to them. My kids are, 6 and 4, and my 4-year-old, he doesn't care about money. Like whether I give him a quarter or I give him $100 bill, like they're the same to him. Like he does not understand the difference at this point. My 6-year-olds are starting to. He
probably likes the coin more because it's shiny.
Oh, he likes the coin more. Rolls. He can put it in his pocket. If it's a $100 bill, he's gonna probably rip it or try to make a paper airplane out of it or whatever, But the value to him is not that. And my daughter's kind of the same. They like being incentivized by getting to like order something off of Amazon because they like going, looking on Amazon because we don't let them like just sit on screens a lot. And so it's like part of it's, they can scroll through Amazon and shop for something. Like, ooh, it's a big deal. But like this morning, honestly, before coming here to do these, we got snow here in Kansas City, right? And so my back deck, was covered in snow. And so I told each of my kids, I said, hey, if you go out in your bare feet and stand in the snow for 15 seconds while Daddy counts to 15, and you stand there and you don't run back inside until I hit 15, then you guys can have an extra Danny Go show today. Ooh. Right? Like they get to watch an extra show today. And the only one that took me up on it was my middle daughter. She went out and did it, and, my wife did it with her. And they both, like, obviously had throbbing feet or whatever. And what's the point in that? To me, it's about, hey, there's incentive and reward on the other side of doing something hard. Yeah. That's the whole point. I do that kind of stuff. Every time it snows, I try to get him to do that kind of stuff. Last time, I think I got Zion to go out just in his underwear for a solid minute.
Wow.
In the
snow. You guys are hardcore.
Like, just go out in the snow just in your underwear for a minute.
Throw him in the pond.
You get back in. Yeah, exactly. No, but the point is, like, is just doing hard things. Like I think that's the biggest value that we can instill into kids that honestly, so many other entrepreneurial skills, like they stem out of that. Problem-solving skills, figuring out, even financial literacy skills, all that kind of stuff, like seeing the value of just doing hard things is the foundation of entrepreneurship. Just understanding that when you sign up to do something, it's going to be hard. There's going to be aspects of it that are hard. You're going to come face to face with disappointment. And I think that's another thing is Jesse Itzler talks a lot about this, how you want to put your kids in situations regularly where they can get disappointed in a controlled environment. If you know your kid sucks at baseball, but he wants to try out for the team, don't try to talk him out of it. Let him go and Don't try to go to the coach behind his back and say, if you'll just let my son on the team, you don't ever have to play him. It would just mean the world to him if he made the team. No, go to the coach and actually say the opposite. Say, no matter how good my son does, don't let him on the team this time. I want him to feel the disappointment. And let's see how he responds after that. Will he practice? Will he endure? Will he become resilient? And putting kids, because at the end of the day, we know not making it on the baseball team is not going to make or break that kid's life. Right? But it does have the, like, putting that kid in the position where they can get disappointed in a controlled environment that's not life or death, right? That's not infinitely traumatic, actually cultivates and develops resilience and the ability to come face to face with disappointment and actually have to learn how to deal with it and overcome it, because that's real life. You know?
Yeah, that's all good stuff.
Any final thoughts? Like,
no, I think, I'm just thinking, so many little tiny moments add up over when you're talking to your kids about stuff like this. It's not like you're sitting them down and doing 2-hour entrepreneurship classes. It's like, it's how you live. And it's just like little drops of, over. Yeah. I'm even thinking about our business. We only go get the coins like 6 times a year.
Yeah.
So it's every 2 months, and it's like a 2-3 hour thing, and that's it.
That's it.
But it's like now we've done it 12 times because we've been doing this for 2 years. And so it's, wow, that's actually a lot, like and so you don't have to be crazy about it. Yeah. It's just setting them up with little things. Maybe it's a book you go through, maybe it's a little business idea, tiny one, lemonade stand, Yeah. Just little things like that. Or the stuff you mentioned, making them stand outside in the ice.
In the snow, barefoot.
So.
In their underwear.
Yeah.
He did it.
What a champ.
He's a beast. He's a beast. So you don't have to push them to start a business.
Yeah.
Just expose them to the real world.
You're not trying to live vicariously through them.
Right.
Just
don't push them to start the lemonade stand. Just expose them in natural moments to what it actually means to operate in the real world. And whenever you can, provide an outsized incentive for them to push through and be resilient, and then bring that incentive closer to reality the older they get. That's what we're doing.
I like it.
Awesome. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Own the Exit. The reason we talk about this kind of stuff is we know that most of our listeners, most of you guys you have families, you have kids, and one of the biggest struggles I know that business owners face is how to balance their business with investing into their family and their kids. And so Aaron and I are very committed to that, and we care very much about our family and our children, but we struggle too. We don't always feel like we have it perfectly in balance, and so we like to have these conversations. He and I talk about this kind of stuff not just on the Exit. We'll have calls during the week sometimes where we talk about this stuff because it's very important. Why are you building a business? And, if your family suffers, then what do you have? And so I like talking about this stuff because it helps people to keep proper perspective about where their priorities should lie without having to feel like your business and your family are in competition with one another, because they're not. The reason you started your business, I want to encourage you with this before we sign off. The reason you started your business, and if you've listened to us for long enough, I know you're here and you align with us. I know you're a lot like us. The reason you started your business was for your family, was because you wanted to achieve something for your family so that your kids could start further ahead than you were able to start, so that your family could have something that you didn't have. And that's a noble ambition and a good thing. And a lot of societal pressure will say that by you pursuing that kind of success and freedom for your family, maybe are doing something bad or wrong. And I would say that societal pressure is bad and wrong. And you can build an amazing business while also being an amazing mom or an amazing dad and an amazing contributor to your family. They don't have to be in competition with each other. Just be and stay on the journey of exploration there. And if we can ever do anything to help, please reach out to us. All right, guys, that's enough for Own the Exit.
Thanks, guys.